John Wycliffe, professor in Balliol College, Oxford, retired and moved to a small village in Leicestershire in 1381. On the 28th of December, 1384, he had a serious stroke, and he died on the last day of the year. 44 years later, Pope Martin V ordered that his body be exhumed. The body was burned. The ashes were thrown in the River Swift. The priests burned any copies of his books that they could find. Notable among Wycliffe's crimes is that he produced the first English translation of the Christian Bible, challenging the official Latin translation. Wycliffe had the radical idea that common people should be allowed to read their scripture in vernacular, rather than wait and listen to the priests quote it to them. A radical idea. Let the people read. Less than a century later, Gutenberg's printing press made local language Bibles available across Europe, birthing the Protestant Reformation. The Western world changed profoundly and permanently. By the start of the 20th century, we were providing citizens with education and with local libraries. Today, we have not just a local library, but one-click access from our schools, from our homes, from our offices, on the bus, even on the beach, one-click access to a near infinity of the world's knowledge and culture. Yes, information will change the world profoundly and permanently. Today, I invite all of you to join me. Let us change the world profoundly and permanently. I'd like to welcome you to UMSI Convocation 2012. Our theme, information will change the world. I am Dean Jeff, and it's my job to help you change the world. So, who are we that we might be able to change the world? Our mission is to create and share knowledge so that people will use information with technology to build a better world. We share passion for the fundamental intertwining of people, information, and technology. We share a defining idea that to understand and improve interactions between people, information, and technology, we need to call on the sciences of all three. We share a willingness to take risks in our teaching, our research, and our service. We're progressive and forward-looking, and we have been for 80 years. We created the first modern multidisciplinary master's degree in information. We created the first consumer health-focused health informatics master's degree, and its first full class of students sits among you today. We created the first undergraduate liberal arts degree that makes the interaction between humans and information the central object of study. And this year's freshmen will be its first class of graduates. We are welcoming and diverse. We are a community, and we have a lot of fun. Who are we? We are UMSI, the iSchool that makes a difference. What have we accomplished? Let me share with you some of the wonderful things that have occurred in the past year. In 2011, we received one of the largest National Science Foundation grants the school has ever received, $8 million to build a system so that sustainability scientists around the world can share and reuse their data. Professor Margaret Hedstrom is the project director, and her team has partners at the University of Illinois, Indiana University, and Rensselaer Polytechnic. Professor Paul Resnick co-authored Building Successful Online Communities, published in March by MIT Press. As one reviewer wrote, I reference this book at least once a week to gain insight into the behavior and design of online communities. Flint is one of the poorest cities in America, and it's one of the highest crime areas in Michigan. It's currently bulldozing about 3,000 houses in order to shrink the city's footprint by 40% to survive. It's in this community that Professor Tiffany Vinot is working with African American youths to reduce the incidence of HIV and STIs. Tiffany created Hope Parties, face-to-face interventions, sort of a Tupperware party for safe sex. She's also developing an HIV and STI Facebook campaign to help these youth, experimenting with recommender systems, rewards, and badges. You've probably heard of Coursera and MOOCs, massive open online courses. This is an effort to give free education to people around the world. Michigan was a charter member of Coursera when it started this winter. Of the first 7 UM courses offered, 2 were created by UMSI faculty, Chuck Severance and Lada Adamic. Chuck had 11,000 students in his class this summer. Lada's class starts on Monday, and registration is at 50,000. Free education for all. If that won't build a better world, what will? In 2006, a Rwanda official asked, how will I tell my own children about what happened to their grandparents who died in the 1994 genocide? How to break the silence that denied youth their family and cultural histories. Patricia Pasek, an Ann Arbor psychologist, answered by creating Stories for Hope to record intergenerational interviews about the genocide and its aftermath, between survivors of the genocide and their children, then to develop them into a digital archive. This month, the National Archives of Rwanda released this collection to the public. David Wallace, faculty member at UMSI, is the chief archivist of Stories for Hope. Let me read you part of a conversation between Pascasi and her son, Jean-Pierre. Pascasi says, Jean-Pierre, I want to share with you my childhood story. Though you see me old, I was once young, like you. I was the only girl of 10 children. My father loved me so much, and I respected him. Then there came times of genocide, too, and people were perished. I remember you asking me whether I don't have any other family apart from your dad, uncle, and aunt whom you know. You looked scared, which is why I didn't want to explain everything to you. You came asking me whether those people that killed their fellows were human. Jean-Pierre asks his mother, why did you hurry into marriage after the genocide? Pascasi replied, life was terrible after the genocide, and I wanted someone to comfort me and help me, like my parents. Someone who could help me raise my sisters and brothers. It was not someone who I dated long. I stayed with that man, but things did not go in my favor, and he started changing. You see, during that early time of marriage, you cannot see any bad side of a partner. We had 2 children then, but he started torturing me and accusing me of being an orphan. He started telling me that he could not take care of me and my miserable family. My heart was wounded. It was like piercing a wound. Rescuing the memories of genocide survivors and building a digital archive so their children and grandchildren can begin to heal. As David says, silence is a very dangerous thing. This is one way in which we are using I to change the world. Of course, our students are doing great things too. For example, each spring, our master's and undergraduate students participate in Alternative Spring Break. They donate a week of volunteer work to nonprofits and public institutions in New York, Washington, Chicago, and Detroit. This year, 140 students provided over 5,000 hours of volunteer service, working for organizations like Illinois Legal Aid Online, Prevent Child Abuse America, and the Arab American Museum. And before they left on ASB, they volunteered more of their time and effort and raised a record $12,000 to defray the costs of the program. While a junior, informatics undergraduate, Jake Steinerman, founded the company Mo Blue Tech. Their first product is an iPhone app that allows autistic children to manipulate icons on the screen, then use a voice generator to communicate.
I think that service is just a big part of what we all want to do and why we're all here at the School of Information, because we really what we're looking at and what we're studying is about using information to serve people and to better people's lives.
That's Shanna Masura, MSI 13. Building a better world is the mission for the whole school, and the staff are committed to it as well. For example, each year the staff organize the UMSI campaign for United Way. It makes a difference. This year, UMSI won the Provost Award for the highest participant percentage on the entire University of Michigan campus. Staff also participated in the Service Day on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. They donated time and skills to local organizations like Food Gatherers, the Ecology Reuse Center, and the Michigan Poverty Law Project. Of course, being part of the SI family is being part of a family for life. Our alumni are out there working with I to build a better world. Some of you may remember Joanna Axelrod, MSI 05. Joanna was your typical old school librarian, mousy, no fashion sense, always spoke in a whisper, as if. Joanna became a youth services librarian at Escondido Public. Her mission is to make tweens and teens passionate about reading by reaching out to them where they live. So she tweets and texts with them. Indeed, she thumbs 90 words a minute and won a regional championship while she's out there. She then develops personal relationships with the teens. She says, you can't be intimidated or hesitate to get in their faces or talk to them. She leads teens in a community service organization that paints over graffiti and that knits caps for newborns and for cancer patients. Meanwhile, she more than doubled the enrollment in the teen summer reading program over 2 years. And this past year, Library Journal named Joanna a U.S. mover and shaker. So where are we going? That's where we've been. We have a vision for this school. UMSI will be first to mind when people think about bringing together people, information, and technology to build a better world. We will be first to mind because we created new knowledge, prepared new leaders, and delivered projects that improved health, lifelong learning, political discourse, poverty at home, digital literacy, youth and teen social development, and the communities in which we all engage. Yes, UMSI will change the world. UMSI will change the world by pioneering design of human-centered information technologies, by taking risks and crossing boundaries, by delivering access to all, by leading the way toward universal digital literacy. UMSI will change the world by asking people what they need and then giving them more than they ask for. Yes, UMSI will change the world, but why here? Why information? Is human interaction with information important enough to commit our lives and our passions? What kind of difference can we make? What makes our mission vital is that we today are in the early days of the second Gutenberg revolution. The second Gutenberg revolution will change society in profound and unpredictable ways, and it will take decades to play out. Revolutions cause great disruptions, often harming many people along the way, and there's no guarantee that the results will always be good. On the verge of revolutionary social transformation, we have a duty to help information change the world for the better. The coming revolution will be transformative. Gutenberg's printing press was arguably the most important information revolution in history so far. The second Gutenberg revolution, the internet revolution, is likely to be even more sweeping. As presented compellingly by historian Elizabeth Eisenstein in her book, The Printing Revolution in Early Modern Europe, the printing press enabled and shaped the scientific revolution. It enabled and shaped the Renaissance. It enabled and shaped and perhaps even caused the Protestant Reformation. It enabled and shaped universal literacy. Gutenberg's press, first operated in about 1450, changed the world, but through the simplest of changes. It significantly lowered the cost and increased the accuracy of reproduction of stored knowledge. The internet is likely to be as important, and quite likely more important, than Gutenberg's press. First, it accomplishes the same feat, but even more dramatically. The internet has again lowered the incremental cost of information production, but this time to about zero. And the internet has again increased reproduction accuracy, but this time to about perfect. Second, the internet accomplishes an additional feat of magic. The internet also lowers the incremental cost and delay of information distribution to about zero. free and accurate reproduction, free and instant distribution. Thus begins a cultural and social revolution of tremendous import. Anytime a critical resource becomes dramatically less expensive, civilizations change. I'm not talking about being able to order books online. I'm not even talking about being able to read books online. I'm not talking about the social impact of search advertising. Think instead of the internal combustion engine and the discovery of cheap oil a bit over a century ago. This made a crucial resource, personal transportation, much less expensive and much faster. Now try to imagine a society today that has no personal motorized transportation. That's social transformation. The Gutenberg revolution enabled a small number of authors to communicate much less expensively with a mass audience, one to many. The internet revolution enables universal authorship, but many to many at about zero cost and instantly. We should expect social transformation from the internet revolution to be at least as significant as we saw from the Gutenberg revolution. So just how important was Gutenberg? Consider the Protestant Reformation, which transformed culture, education, and nation-state power. John Wycliffe, you remember John? Was able to challenge the Pope's rigid control by creating a handwritten English translation of the Bible. But ultimately, he failed. Martin Luther succeeded about a century later because by his time there were printed editions of multiple variants of the Bible in circulation, making the dogmatic crisis evident to many. Nonetheless, it required something else. Luther's ideas had to spread. In 1517, Luther wrote his 95 Theses, and he sent them to his archbishop as a scholarly letter of dispute. No one cared. No one noticed. There were no mobs surging out of Wittenberg, but a year later, his friends printed the 95 Theses. Within months, they were widely read in Germany, France, England, and Italy, and students from across Europe swarmed to Wittenberg. The printing press then enabled the ensuing rise of Protestantism. For example, the Catholic Church, fearful of free thinking, banned long lists of books, not just of theology, but of science. Remember Galileo. Banning books predictably led to their even greater popularity where they could be printed and read, in Protestant-controlled regions. Gutenberg also enabled and shaped the Fourth Renaissance. The Fourth Renaissance, you say? What were the first three? Precisely. There were three eras in the Middle Ages known as Renaissances: the Carolingian, the Ottonian, and the 12th century Renaissance. Yet all three failed and Dark Ages returned. What about the fourth, the Renaissance we all know now as the rebirth of intellectual and cultural civilization in the West? The Fourth Renaissance began about 100 years before Gutenberg in northern Italy. But the Renaissance before printing was largely looking backwards. It was focused on restoring the intellectual, artistic, and cultural accomplishments of the Greek classical era. Only after Gutenberg, due to the fixity, accuracy, and low cost of printing, did ideas begin to spread north of the Alps, and the focus turned to the future. The classical texts became fixed as points of reference, and scholars began to improve upon them, creating a blossoming of new culture. The Western world never turned back. The depth, duration, and success of the Renaissance owe much to the printing press. This change in attitude towards the past also enabled the scientific revolution. As Mander wrote, scribal culture revered the ancients because they were closer to uncorrupted knowledge, that is, knowledge not yet corrupted through the process of scribal transmission. Print culture, because it allows for the cumulative advance of knowledge, views the past from a fixed distance. The notion of cumulative and progressive knowledge was the foundation of the scientific revolution. Without printing, there was no reliable system for data collection. Think about maps. They changed every time a scribe copied them. The more widely maps were distributed, the less accurate they became. Likewise, for astronomical observations, they accumulated errors in each successive manuscript. Indeed, by comparing printed copies of Ptolemy, Aristotle, and others, Copernicus was able to identify their errors and inconsistencies. And it was through the analysis of these that he was able to write his De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium in 1543, which commenced the scientific revolution. The fixity and wide distribution of print also supported the emergence of intellectual property. Eisenstein wrote, "Printing also encouraged publishers to advertise authors and authors to advertise themselves. Scribal culture could not sustain the patenting of inventions or the copywriting of literary compositions. It worked against the concept of intellectual property rights." Causes for social, cultural, religious, and scientific revolutions are, of course, quite complicated. But there's no longer any serious dispute that the Gutenberg Revolution was an enabler and a shaper of the Protestant Reformation, the Renaissance, and the scientific revolution. And remember, the immediate effect of the printing press was no more than a technological change, a reduction in cost and increase in accuracy of the reproduction of stored knowledge. But from that modest technological change came one-to-many communication. Now that we're in the beginning of the second Gutenberg revolution, the internet revolution, information reproduction costs zero. Accuracy is perfect. And in addition, information distribution costs zero and it's instant. Many-to-many communication, soon for virtually everyone on the planet, is now practical. So what sort of changes will there be? We cannot know. No one could predict the course of the scientific revolution, for instance. But we can see hints, and we can let our imaginations run. And the fun is that we can realize that whatever we imagine, the actual changes will likely be bigger and more surprising. For example, though the Arab Spring revolutions last year might have occurred without social media, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube played important roles in giving repressed, impoverished people a coordination platform and a voice, both crucial for overthrowing military regimes. And within already democratic countries, we are seeing changes in the way we carry out civic discourse. Might citizen government become a reality for better or worse? Would this change not be as big as the change from the feudal system to the nation state at the end of the Middle Ages? Does it seem outlandish to say that in short order, all of the world's stored knowledge will be accessible to everyone from a pocket device? I think not. David Weinberger points out how much has happened during just the last 10 years. Massive databases of economic information released by the World Bank, the entire human genome, maps of billions of stars, the full text of over 10 million books made accessible by Google Books, attempts to catalog all Earth species. If we can do that already, what won't be available 10 years from now? There's every reason to think we're at the start of a social, cultural, political, and scientific transformation every bit as significant as the Protestant Reformation, the scientific revolution, and the Renaissance. That, my friends, is humbling. I will change the world. Of course, not every change during revolution is for the better, and that's where we come in. UMSI will change the world for the better. That is our mission. So how are we going to do this? UMSI will change the world through improving learning here and in the developing world, through improving healthcare and health behavior here and in the developing world, through improving civic and political discourse in stable, emerging, and not yet democracies around the world, through improving youth and teen social development, through improving the communities in which we engage online and offline. Today, I'm going to announce two new UMSI initiatives. We will be making substantial investments to drive us towards our vision. Our vision, again, is that we will be first in mind when people think about bringing people, information, and technology together to build a better world. We will be first in mind because we made a difference. To accomplish this vision, we need to take risks, we need to be bold, and we will. We need to be compassionate and passionate, and we are. Our first new initiative is the M-Cubed program to support our mission to do research that builds a better world. M-Cubed is a new campus-wide incubator for faculty and their doctoral students. Multidisciplinary teams from at least 2 different schools will publicly announce their project idea and get automatic seed funding to do the first year of work. By skipping long government-run grant reviews, this program should stimulate risky collaborative ideas. And UMSI is the only school on this campus committing to provide this support to 100% of its faculty who put together a team. UMSI is committing up to $160,000 to support the first round of M-Cubed. Depending on success, we will invest more. We look forward to exciting new ways for I to build a better world. Our second initiative is a new service learning project. It will support our mission to educate informationists who build a better world. And while we are learning, we will be giving something to the world. We haven't named this program yet or worked out all of the details, but we launched this new adventure today. So let me call it Project I. Yes, Project I will change the world. UMSI is committing $300,000 to initiate Project I. Where do we get that money? Not from tuition. This fund came from personal gifts by UMSI faculty, recent retirees, and a few strong friends of the school. Yes, the faculty of this school believe in changing the world enough that they gave back, donating $300,000 so that we can start this exciting new project. For Project I, we will establish a multi-year program that engages students, faculty, and professional staff in extended projects to improve the lives of a sizable community through better access, sharing, communication, or processing of information. We might, for example, develop tools and train nonprofit employees to gather and process massive data in order to better deliver new services to their community. Or we might create community-based health information services and personal technologies to reduce childhood obesity or improve the health of diabetics. Over the next several months, Project I will hire a program director. We will select a faculty director. We will select a community. This will be either a geographic community in distress, like Flint, or a virtual community connected through a major nonprofit service agency, like the National Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. We will develop a 4-credit project course. We will seek investment partners. With additional investments, we can engage more students in service learning. We can add a professional developer to the program team, and we can provide support to our community partners so they can engage more fully in the program and its activities, and so that we can continue it beyond a few years. We will be in the field building a better world within a year. Project I is a win-win. Our students will have an unparalleled opportunity for faculty-guided experiential learning, and real people in the real world will benefit from the projects we develop to improve their lives. Are you excited? Contact umsi.project.i and let us know you want to be involved. I hope you agree. UMSI does not just talk the talk, but we walk the walk. This year, we're starting 2 new major initiatives to advance our mission, research and teaching, in ways that will help I to build a better world. M-Cubed and Project I. Stay tuned, great things to come. Colleagues, members of the UMSI community, we are the leaders and the best. We are lifelong members of a caring, giving, learning, and helping community. John Sloan Dickey was the new president of Dartmouth College shortly after the U.S. dropped the first atom bomb on Hiroshima. He told the students, "The world's troubles are your troubles, but there's nothing wrong with the world that better human beings can't fix. I want you to know that your dean expects something of you. Changing the world for the better is your duty." Here at UMSI is a great place to do it, because you know and I know that I will change the world. Information will change the world, and yes, you will too. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining us in this mission.